I'm still learning a lot of different things of how to use this video, but I want to show you my slippers. They're jack-o'-lantern slippers. And then the other thing I wanted you to see was my dog. See, now she's been, where is she? You can't see her. There you are. There you are. There you are. You want to give Mommy a kiss? Mwah. She's been snoring a lot in the background. And today is her 11th birthday. Happy birthday, Maggie. Happy birthday. So, anyway, today I'm going to read you. This is a practice reading for my reading tonight at Wusoow's Concert Cafe. It's a big lunch. And so, since it's so close to Halloween, I want you to think about a time you have been scared. And this is a time when 3 little kids were very scared. They were afraid. So it is about the time Jeanette, Helen, and George were little kids. They were preschool age, and they were afraid. So now, as I've said, and I'll say it again, Blooming Hollyhocks is about a girl named Jeanette who grew up in southwest Minnesota during the Great Depression and came of age during World War II homefront years. The story takes place from approximately 1930 to 1952 and a little bit beyond. The story includes her brothers and sisters, sister, cousin, and other relatives. Jeanette was my mother. She was child number 4. This particular story I'm going to tell you is not spooky scary, but it was frightening for the Meinhardts. In those days, children were free to roam, play, and explore the whole town. Helen, Jeanette, and George ran around Avoca together. Oftentimes, Richard Hansen, the next-door neighbor boy, hung around with them. During this period, the family started using the boys to refer to the 2 eldest brothers, Gordon and Jimmy, and the girls and George meant, of course, Helen, Jeanette, and George. This was how the children naturally divided themselves. One summer, the girls and George, with neighbor boy Richard Hansen, were hanging around the slough, which was north of the Hansens and the Meinhardts' yards. A slough is a body of water that ebbs and flows in size. It is often found in wetlands or along rivers or other bodies of water. In this case, the slough was part of Lime Lake. Young Carl Hansen, the adult brother of Richard, so Richard's dad's name was Carl Hansen, and so the first brother was also Carl Hansen, so they called him Young Carl Hansen. Well, young Carl Hansen had built a boat, and it was down at the slough. It was hand-hewn. Although the children were not experts on boats, Jeanette thought this boat was much prettier than the boats she had previously ridden. They'd been on a few boats with their family during picnics and celebrations. Strips of cedar and ash wood and contrasted with each other. The boat's sides curved to a point at the bow. "Let's get in and play," said Helen. "It's so beautiful. I want to see what it looks like on the inside," Jeanette said. Wearing her bib overalls, Helen climbed into the boat. Then she reached out for George's hand. Jeanette, right behind him, held George by the back of his bib overalls, where the back of the straps form a Y. Inside, 2 wooden seats stretched from the left to the right hull. Inside, beautifully varnished wood formed the ribs, which gave the boat its shape and support. "Okay," Helen said. "Let's play, let's pretend. I'm pretending I'm Dad, and I'm taking our family on a ride," Helen said. "I'm pretending I'm fishing," said Jeanette. George sat behind Jeanette. He reached into his pocket and pulled out some rocks and threw them one by one over the side of the boat. He smiled each time a rock splashed. There was no dock, and although the boat may have been anchored with a light anchor, it started drifting into deeper water. The slough wasn't very deep, but the children were too young to know how to use oars and became frightened as it moved further and further from dry land. Richard was on shore. The girls shouted at him for him to tell someone they were drifting in the boat. Richard ran to the Meinhardt's house and told Mrs. Meinhardt. "It seems like he's been gone for a really long time," Jeanette said, after what seemed like an eternity. "I wonder if he found anyone to help us or if he's ever coming back," Helen fretted. George didn't like hearing the fear in his older sister's voices. Helen, Jeanette, and George continued to drift as dry land moved further and further away. Finally, as the children were close to tears, they saw not only their mom, but also their dad, who was supposed to be at work at the depot, as well as their older brothers, Gordon and Jimmy. The whole Meinhardt family stood at the edge of the water. Russell handed Winifred his railroad pocket watch, an essential instrument for his work at the depot. They watched their dad, fully clothed, including his shoes, walk into the water to get the children. Though they can become wide, sloughs rarely get deep. The bottom is mucky. Russell grabbed a rope tied on the hull when he reached the boat. He pulled the boat back to shore. He didn't scold them. He could see they were scared enough without getting scolded. It doesn't take long enough for everyone to know about events like this in a small town. Helen, George, and especially Jeanette were embarrassed. Not even the Hansons scolded them for playing around on their property. But people around town liked to tease the girls and George. "Oh, did you try to go for a ride?" they'd say. Jeanette didn't appreciate the teasing and would try to hide from them. For example, if they were walking by the business district, Jeanette would hide around the corner or behind a tree if she saw someone approaching that she thought was likely to tease them. Later, whenever the family talked about the story, Jeanette became embarrassed. "I learned not to be messing around with boats and to leave other people's property alone," Jeanette said.